You won't believe what happened when my baby kept crawling toward the closet, and we never told him that's where she died. Right from the first moment it felt like something was off. I'm not just talking about a baby's curiosity, that innocent urge to explore. No, this was different. It was like an invisible force was pulling him, and every time he crawled closer, my heart sank deeper. If you've ever felt that strange chill in your own home, that uneasy feeling that something isn't quite right, then you'll understand why this story has haunted me day and night. Today I'm going to share everything with you, every detail about the strange, unsettling events that unfolded, and why my baby's crawling led us to face a secret we had buried for too long. Let me tell you, this isn't just a story about a child's behavior or a spooky closet. It's about grief, mystery, and a family struggling to heal from a loss that never really left us. When we lost our daughter, it shattered our world. We never expected that the space where she breathed her last would turn into a haunting memory, an invisible magnet drawing my baby boy toward a place we dared not speak of. But here's what's crazy, we never told him what happened there. Not a word. Yet day after day he kept crawling toward that closet as if something or someone was calling him. I know you're wondering what that could mean. Maybe you're thinking it's just a phase, or maybe, like me, you're starting to feel there's something more to this. Something supernatural, maybe even chilling. If you've clicked on this video, you want the answers, and I promise by the end of this story you will get them. I'm going to take you deep into our home, into the heart of our pain, and into moments that made us question reality itself. I want you to feel what we felt, the confusion, the fear, the hope, because this story isn't just mine, it's something many families face when grief and mystery collide. So before you scroll away or hit that next video, I ask you to stay with me. Stay curious, stay open, and prepare yourself for a story that is as heartbreaking as it is mysterious. Because sometimes the most ordinary places hide the darkest secrets, and sometimes even the smallest baby can lead us right back to the place we thought we'd forgotten. Let me introduce you to the key players in this story. There's me, the parent trying to protect my family from the past while trying to understand the strange things happening now. There's my baby boy, just months old, innocent but somehow drawn to something unseen. And then there was our daughter, the one we lost, the one who never really left. She was only a little girl when she died, and her absence still fills the house with an unbearable silence. The closet where she passed was never opened after that day, almost like a tomb sealed by sorrow. But somehow my baby found it again. That closet, once just a place to keep old coats and forgotten things, became the center of our nightmare. You might be asking yourself, why the closet? Why didn't they tell the baby? Those are the exact questions I asked myself every single day. We thought keeping it a secret would protect him, protect us. But it seemed the secret had a power of its own, reaching out through the shadows, through the silence, through a baby's curious eyes. What followed was a series of moments so strange, so unexplained, that it forced us to confront what we didn't want to believe, that grief can linger, that places remember pain, and that maybe, just maybe, our daughter's spirit was still there, waiting for someone to notice. This story touches on something deeply human, the connection between loss and the unknown, between the living and those who have passed on. I want you to think about your own home for a moment. Is there a place you avoid? A room filled with memories that hurt too much to face? Maybe you felt a presence or a chill or just a feeling that you're not alone. You're not crazy. These feelings happen more often than we admit, and my story might help you understand why. So as you watch this, listen closely. Notice the little details that don't quite add up, the moments when the ordinary turns strange, and the emotions that surface when a baby's innocent actions reveal a deeper truth. I won't rush through it, and I won't hide the rawness of what we went through. This is real. This is raw. And it's about to change the way you think about loss, family, and the spaces we live in. Now, I have to warn you, what happens next will surprise you. There were nights when we couldn't sleep, when every creak and whisper felt like a message. There were moments when the baby's crawling wasn't just about exploration. It was like he was searching for something, or someone. We started noticing things we can't explain, signs and shadows that made us question what was real and what was not. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. But what really shook us was the moment we realized the truth behind his crawling. A truth so painful and so strange, it still keeps me awake at night. Since that day, everything about our home seemed to shift, though on the surface life went on much like it always had. I tried to keep things normal, to focus on my baby boy, on work, on the little routines that make a house a home, but there was always that undercurrent, like a low hum of something unsettled. Our daughter's death had been sudden and shocking, and even though it had been months ago, the grief was still raw, a wound that never quite healed. People around us were kind but awkward, tiptoeing around the subject, unsure how to comfort or whether to bring up her name. I wasn't sure what was worse, the silence or the awkward sympathy. So, we retreated into ourselves trying to protect what was left of our family. But then the crawling began and the focus shifted, because the way my baby moved toward that closet wasn't just innocent curiosity, it was like he was trying to tell us something we weren't ready to hear. Before the crawling started, we had been through a string of difficult days. The baby had been unusually fussy, more than just normal baby fussiness, and I found myself constantly on edge trying to soothe him but feeling like something was off, like an invisible weight pressing down on all of us. My partner and I exchanged worried glances but never spoke out loud what we were both feeling. Part of me thought it was just the stress of losing our daughter, of navigating that unbearable grief while trying to hold ourselves together. But then the crawling toward the closet began, and suddenly the air in the house grew thick with unspoken tension. I remember watching him from across the room, how his little eyes locked onto that closet door as if drawn by a magnet. I thought maybe he was fascinated by the shadows, or the dim light spilling through the crack beneath the door. But no, it was something else entirely, something that chilled me to the bone. In the weeks that followed, strange things started to happen. At first, I tried to dismiss them: misplaced objects, soft noises at night, the feeling of being watched. I told myself it was just stress or the house settling. But then I found my daughter's favorite doll, the one we'd packed away, sitting upright on the edge of the closet shelf when no one had been near it. It was the first sign that maybe the past wasn't as buried as we thought. At the same time, I noticed tension growing between me and some people we trusted. Family members who seemed to avoid looking me in the eye, friends who stopped calling, neighbors whispering just out of earshot. I began to wonder if someone knew more than they were letting on, if secrets were being kept behind polite smiles and forced conversations. There was even a moment when my partner hinted that maybe we should consider moving, but I resisted, desperate to keep some sense of normalcy, even if it meant facing the haunting presence in that closet every day. Around this time, I also started digging into the last days before our daughter died, searching for answers in hospital records, old messages, and conversations with people who had been there. The more I uncovered, the more complicated the story became. There were conflicting accounts, small details that didn't add up, and a few people who suddenly seemed less trustworthy. One family friend who had been close to us acted strangely evasive when I asked about the night our daughter fell ill. A neighbor who we'd always considered friendly suddenly denied ever hearing anything unusual that night, even though others claimed to have seen lights in our window or heard soft cries. These inconsistencies gnawed at me, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion that made the house feel colder. Was there more to her death than what we'd been told? Was someone hiding something? I found myself questioning not just strangers but people I had loved and trusted. As these doubts grew, so did the eerie occurrences around the closet. My baby's crawling was no longer just a quiet fascination. He began to stop, stare, and sometimes even cry quietly in front of the door. It was as if something unseen was communicating with him, reaching out in ways that defied explanation. I started to hear faint whispers late at night, sounds I couldn't place but that seemed to come from that direction. Lights flickered on and off, and shadows danced just beyond the corner of my vision. Friends and family who came over noticed the strange atmosphere too, but no one could explain it and no one wanted to linger too long. Even my partner grew distant, torn between wanting to protect me and wanting to avoid confronting what was happening. I felt increasingly alone in a house full of secrets, with only my baby's silent crawling and the haunted closet as companions. If you're wondering who or what might be behind all this, that's exactly where this story gets even more complicated. Was it the lingering spirit of our daughter trying to connect with her brother in some way? Was it something darker, a hidden tragedy no one dared to reveal? Or could it be tied to someone close, someone who had reasons to keep the truth hidden, someone whose motives we couldn't yet understand? Every time I thought I was getting closer to an answer, something else would pull me back, a new clue or a suspicious look that made me question everything I thought I knew. The mystery wrapped tighter around my family, and every day the crawling baby seemed to pull us deeper into the unknown. I want you to stay with me as I unfold the layers of this story, because what seems like an innocent child's behavior might actually be the key to unlocking a secret long buried in the shadows of our home. This isn't just about a closet or a baby's crawling anymore. It's about the fragile thread between the living and the dead, about trust and betrayal, about the things we never say but that haunt us anyway. It's about facing what we fear the most and finding a way to heal, even when the path is dark and uncertain. So, if you've ever felt the pull of a mystery you couldn't ignore, if you believe that sometimes the past refuses to stay buried, and if you want to uncover the truth behind the crawling baby in the haunted closet, then you're exactly where you need to be. The story isn't over and the answers are coming, but be prepared. What we discover will challenge everything we thought was real, and leave you questioning what really hides in the quiet corners of your own home. As the days passed, the tension escalated and the shadows deepened. What seemed like a simple tragedy became a tangled web of secrets, suspicion, and unexplained forces. And it all started with a baby crawling toward a closet that should have remained closed forever. What happened next changed everything, and I promise you won't want to miss a second. Just when I thought we were starting to piece things together, life threw us curveballs that made everything feel like it was slipping through my fingers. The deeper I dug, the more the ground beneath me seemed to shift, and suddenly, the truth I was chasing felt farther away than ever. One of the hardest moments came when I discovered a box of keepsakes, items connected to our daughter's last days, that I had carefully stored away, hoping to find clues within. But one evening when I went to look for something specific, the box was gone. Not misplaced, not tucked away somewhere new, completely vanished. I remember standing in the empty corner of the closet, panic flooding through me, because that box was more than just old memories. It held letters, photos, even a voice recording that I hadn't yet listened to. How could something so important disappear overnight? At first, I thought I had misplaced it or someone in the family had moved it, maybe wanting to shield me from more pain. But then, little things started pointing toward something more sinister. Around the same time, I got a cryptic phone call from someone I barely recognized, a neighbor we hadn't spoken to much before. Their voice was low and urgent, almost afraid, and they warned me to stop looking into the past, saying some things are better left alone. I laughed it off at first, assuming it was just paranoia or a prank, but the warning stuck with me. It made me question who was watching us, who knew more than they let on, and why they cared so much to try to silence me. It felt like I was being pulled into a game I hadn't signed up for, and every step forward came with the risk of falling deeper into unknown territory. Who would want to keep the truth about our daughter's death a secret? And what did that mean for my family now? As I tried to make sense of all this, I uncovered a secret from my partner's past. Something that hadn't come up before and that suddenly seemed to explain the strange distance growing between us. It was a small detail easily overlooked, but when I found an old letter hidden in a drawer, the tone and words hinted at a betrayal, a moment where trust had been broken long before our daughter was born. It wasn't anything dramatic on the surface, but the implications were enough to make me wonder if there was more going on beneath the surface. If perhaps the pain we were living through wasn't just about loss but about secrets that ran deeper than I ever imagined. Was my partner hiding something? Or had someone else in our circle been involved in ways I couldn't yet see? The more I questioned, the more isolated I felt, caught between wanting to believe the people I loved and fearing the truths they might be hiding. And then there was the stranger, someone who suddenly appeared in our lives claiming to want to help. They seemed kind and genuine at first, offering support and even sharing stories of their own loss, but something about them didn't sit right with me. Their timing was too perfect, their interest too intense. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching, waiting, perhaps even manipulating us. When I tried to ask them about the missing box or the strange noises at night, their answers were vague or dismissive. It was as if they knew more than they were willing to share, and that secrecy only made my suspicion grow. Were they an ally or an obstacle? Friend or foe? I realized that trusting anyone now could be dangerous, and that the answers I sought might come at a cost I wasn't prepared to pay. The house itself seemed to respond to this growing tension. Doors would creak open by themselves, the baby would stare at empty corners and sometimes scream suddenly, as if reacting to something invisible. I began to feel like I was losing control, like the past was reaching into the present, pulling me toward a truth that was both terrifying and inevitable. Every lead seemed to twist into another mystery, every clue dissolved into doubt, and every step I took forward was met with a shadow of resistance, whether from people or something unseen. And just when I thought the pieces might finally fit together, another twist came that left me reeling. One night, as I was sifting through old photos, I noticed something in the background, a figure that didn't belong, someone standing just outside the window watching silently. It was fleeting, barely there, but it changed everything. Who was that? Had they been there all along, lurking in the edges of our grief? And what did they want from us? I tried to find out, but every attempt to uncover the identity of that watcher only led to dead ends, unanswered questions, and more silence. This story isn't neat or easy. It's messy, painful, and filled with shadows that refuse to be ignored. The crawling baby, the missing keepsakes, the whispered warnings, the hidden betrayals, and the stranger in our midst, all of it weaves together into a mystery that's far from solved. I can't tell you yet what the truth is, but I promise, every moment I share with you brings us closer. What I do know is that the closet isn't just a space filled with memories or grief, it's a doorway to something much bigger and far more complicated than I ever expected. So if you think you're ready to step into the unknown with me, to keep unraveling the layers of this haunting story, then stay close. Because the next chapter might just change everything we thought we knew, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The secrets hiding in that closet have a voice and they're finally starting to speak. But will we be ready to listen? Just when I thought the storm of confusion couldn't grow any darker, something happened that shattered the fragile balance we'd been clinging to. My partner's sister, someone I'd always considered an ally, a voice of reason during the darkest days, reached out to me late one night, her voice trembling with the kind of fear that makes your skin crawl. She told me she'd received a message, something chilling and cryptic, that mirrored the warnings I had been getting. But it wasn't just words on a screen or a whispered phone call, it was a physical clue, something left at her doorstep, a small old photograph of our daughter, marked with strange symbols we didn't recognize. When she showed it to me, my heart pounded so hard I thought I'd hear it in my ears. Why was she being dragged into this nightmare too? And who was behind it all? This wasn't just about our family anymore. It felt like a web was tightening and snaring everyone close to us, pulling secrets from shadows that were better left undisturbed. This new threat came with an unexpected twist. The photograph didn't just remind us of our daughter, it contradicted everything we thought we knew about her final days. In the photo, there was someone standing beside her, a man we hadn't seen or heard of before, someone who didn't belong in any of our memories. At first, we tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was an old family friend, a distant relative we'd forgotten, or just a stranger caught by accident. But the more we looked, the more impossible it seemed to ignore that figure's presence. Questions flooded my mind. Who was he? Why hadn't anyone mentioned him before? Could he be connected to the secrets hiding in that closet, or worse, to the mysterious warnings we were receiving? Suddenly, every conversation, every relationship, every memory became suspect. The people I trusted the most now felt like characters in a story I no longer understood. Around the same time, another piece of evidence surfaced that only deepened the confusion. An old diary belonging to our daughter was discovered, hidden away in a forgotten drawer during a routine cleaning. At first, it seemed like a heartbreaking relic, filled with innocent scribbles and childish drawings. But then, buried in the pages were notes, cryptic and unsettling, hinting at fears she had never voiced aloud. She wrote about shadows she saw in the house, whispers in the night, and a secret she couldn't tell. Those words hit me harder than anything before because they suggested she sensed something was wrong long before her death. Were these just the imaginings of a scared child, or was there really something lurking in our home, something that we had overlooked? The diary didn't just open a window into her mind, it shattered the very foundation of what we thought was true about our family's past. Meanwhile, the stranger who had suddenly entered our lives, the one I wasn't sure I could trust, started showing up more frequently, their presence unsettling yet impossible to ignore. They claimed to have knowledge about the symbols on the photo and even spoke about a hidden history connected to our family that no one had dared to reveal. But every time I pressed for details, they dodged the questions or changed the subject, leaving me with more doubts than answers. Was this person a friend trying to help, or someone manipulating us from the shadows? Their involvement only added another layer of mystery, blurring the line between ally and adversary, truth and deception. As I struggled to piece together the puzzle, I found myself wondering if the real danger wasn't the past haunting us, but the people around us hiding secrets that could destroy everything. The stakes couldn't have felt higher. Suddenly, every interaction felt charged with unspoken tension, every glance was filled with suspicion, and the line between safety and threat grew thinner by the day. I realized that this wasn't just about a closet, a baby crawling, or even the loss of a child. This was about a hidden story, tangled with betrayal, fear, and a web of lies that stretched further than I had ever imagined. And with each new revelation, the more I questioned who I could trust, in my family, among friends, and even within myself. So now, as the shadows lengthen and the secrets multiply, the question remains: who is really pulling the strings behind this mystery? What truth lies hidden behind those symbols, behind the cryptic messages, and behind the eyes of the baby who keeps crawling toward the closet? And most importantly, will we ever be able to face the past without losing what little we have left? The answers are closer than ever, but the path forward has never felt more dangerous or uncertain. Stay with me because the next part of this story will reveal truths that could change everything, and you'll want to be here when it happens. The tension that had been quietly simmering beneath the surface finally erupted into something dark and unavoidable, something that forced me to confront a terrifying reality. We were no longer just haunted by memories and secrets, we were in real danger. It started subtly, with the sensation of eyes watching me when no one was around, the feeling that every step I took was being tracked. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just anxiety, the natural paranoia that comes from losing so much and being caught in a web of mysteries. But then the phone calls began, silent, just breathing on the other end, and the notes slipped under our door, messages scrawled in shaky handwriting warning us to stop digging or face the consequences. The words were chillingly clear, and they sent a cold wave through my body that I couldn't shake. Someone was watching us, someone who wanted us to back off, and they weren't afraid to make that threat known. The worst blow came when my partner's sister, the one who had received the photograph, suddenly disappeared without a trace. One day she was there holding the photo in her trembling hands, and the next all contact was gone. Calls went unanswered, her car was still in the driveway, and neighbors said they hadn't seen her leave. The police were involved, but with little evidence and no suspects, the case quickly stalled. Her disappearance felt like a message aimed straight at us, a dark warning that the danger was no longer lurking in shadows but closing in fast and close. The weight of fear crushed me, and I found myself questioning every relationship, every word spoken, and every moment leading up to this terrifying silence. Was her disappearance connected to the strange man in the photograph? The symbols, the diary, the stranger who haunted our home, were they all part of a sinister plan to keep us silent forever? My thoughts spiraled into a haze of dread and doubt. I couldn't tell if my fears were justified or if the stress was unraveling my mind. The house felt suffocating, the walls closing in as if the past was squeezing the life out of the present. Every creak in the floorboards, every flicker of the lights, became a trigger for panic. I started double-checking locks multiple times a night, peering out windows to see if I was being watched, and jumping at the slightest noise. The crawling baby, once a symbol of innocent curiosity, now seemed like a silent witness to something far darker, something I couldn't protect him from. My partner's growing silence, their distant eyes, only added to the loneliness I felt in what should have been a sanctuary. We were trapped in a nightmare where trust had eroded and danger lurked behind every familiar face. What scared me most wasn't just the threats or the disappearance, it was the realization that whatever was chasing us didn't care about our pain or our loss. It cared only about control, about burying the truth beneath layers of fear and silence. And in that moment, I knew that the closet, the baby's crawling, the diary, the strange symbols, they were all part of a puzzle I was desperate to solve, but one that might cost us everything. I was standing on the edge of a precipice, with the past pulling me down and the future shrouded in darkness. The questions burned hotter than ever. Who was behind all this? What secret was worth this price? And would I lose myself, or worse, the people I love, before I could find the answers? As I sit here now, sharing this with you, the weight of uncertainty presses down like a storm about to break. The story is far from over, and the danger is very real. But I have to keep going, keep searching, because the crawling baby keeps leading me forward, toward the closet and whatever lies hidden behind its door. The truth waits there, but so does the unknown, and maybe something even darker. If you felt the pull of mystery and fear, if you believe that sometimes the past refuses to stay buried, then stay close. Because the next chapter could change everything, and I promise you won't want to miss what's coming next. Just when I thought I had braced myself for everything, the ground shifted beneath me once again, and this time, it wasn't just unsettling, it was earth-shattering. I discovered something that changed everything, turning the entire story on its head and forcing me to question every moment, every person, and every truth I'd held onto so tightly. It happened late one night when I finally confronted the stranger who had appeared in our lives, the one I had suspected all along, the one whose help felt more like a trap. I demanded answers, and what I heard broke me in ways I didn't expect. The stranger revealed that the baby's crawling toward the closet wasn't about our daughter or a haunting spirit at all. It was a red herring, a carefully constructed distraction designed to keep me occupied while something else unfolded in the background. They told me that the true secret wasn't in the closet, wasn't even about the mysterious figure in the photograph or the symbols scrawled in that old diary. It was about someone I thought I knew better than anyone, my partner. According to this stranger, there were things about our past, about our daughter's death, that had been hidden not because of supernatural forces, but because of betrayal and calculated silence. The stranger claimed my partner had been involved in a cover-up, something so dark and twisted that it wasn't just protecting secrets, it was protecting themselves. The disappearance of my partner's sister, the threats, the missing keepsakes, all tied to an effort to keep me from uncovering the truth that could shatter everything. At first I couldn't believe it. I kept replaying every conversation, every look, every moment, searching for signs I'd missed. But the more I thought about it, the more pieces fell into place. The distance growing between us, the hesitation when I asked about the past, the way certain questions were dodged. It all suddenly felt like part of a carefully crafted act. I had been so focused on the supernatural, on ghosts and symbols, that I hadn't seen the very real human darkness hiding in plain sight. The closet wasn't just a place of sorrow, it was a symbol of all the lies that had been locked away, and my partner was the one holding the key. What shocked me even more was the realization that I wasn't the only one being watched or manipulated. The messages, the warnings, the threats, they were designed to isolate me, to make me doubt myself and those closest to me. It wasn't some unknown enemy lurking in the shadows, it was someone I lived with every day, someone I had trusted with my heart and my family. This revelation didn't just turn the mystery upside down, it shattered the very foundation of everything I believed about love, loss, and trust. Suddenly, I was alone in a house full of secrets, with a crawling baby who unknowingly pulled me deeper into a web of deceit that threatened to consume us all. As I processed this betrayal and the dark truth behind our daughter's death, I'm left with more questions than ever. How far would someone go to protect their secrets? What price are they willing to make me pay? And most terrifying of all, what else is hidden behind the closet door that I thought I understood? The mystery isn't about ghosts or curses anymore. It's about uncovering a human heart capable of unimaginable things. I'm sharing this with you now because the story is no longer just mine, it's a cautionary tale about the masks people wear and the dangers lurking in the places we call home. If you've been following this story, buckle up because the truth is darker and more complicated than anything I could have imagined, and it's far from over. The moment the truth settled into my mind like a heavy stone, the weight of impossible choices crashed down on me from all sides, suffocating and relentless. I found myself standing at a crossroads I never wanted to face, forced to confront the person I loved most with questions I wasn't sure I could bear to ask. The betrayal wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it was a fracture in the very foundation of my family, a chasm filled with dark secrets that threatened to swallow us whole. I remember the night I finally sat down across from my partner, eyes searching for a flicker of honesty in a face I'd known for years, and I asked the questions that had been burning inside me. Their silence was louder than any words, a painful pause that felt like the space between life and death. But beneath that silence was something worse, the realization that the truth they were hiding might be more dangerous than I ever imagined. And then came the ultimatum, delivered not in words but in the cold, calculated way our lives suddenly twisted out of control. I was made to understand that digging deeper, seeking answers, was no longer just a matter of personal closure or justice. It was a matter of survival. The message was clear: stop now or risk losing everything. My safety, my family's safety, even the fragile peace we had left, all hanging by a thread depending on the choices I made. It was the kind of decision no one should ever have to make, the kind that tears at your soul and makes you question what loyalty really means when the stakes are this high. Do I protect myself and the ones I love by burying the truth? Or do I risk it all to expose the darkness lurking in the shadows, even if it means walking into a storm that could destroy us? The emotional weight of this choice crushed me in ways I never expected. I thought grief was the hardest part, the ache of losing a child, the silence that fills a home after loss. But this was different. This was the pain of knowing that the people closest to you might be the ones keeping you trapped in a nightmare. I found myself questioning every memory, every shared moment, wondering which parts were real and which had been staged to keep me blind. The crawling baby, innocent and unaware, became a heartbreaking reminder of what was at stake, a symbol of the fragile hope I clung to even as the world around me threatened to crumble. Nights grew longer and darker, filled with restless thoughts and whispered fears. The house no longer felt like a refuge but a cage, every corner shadowed with doubt. I couldn't trust my own instincts because the line between truth and deception blurred more each day. And as the pressure mounted, I realized that no matter what choice I made, there would be consequences, pain, loss, and maybe even more secrets revealed in the aftermath. The future felt uncertain and terrifying, and yet, deep down, I knew I couldn't turn back. I owed it to myself, to my lost daughter, and to the baby who kept crawling toward that closet to find the truth, no matter the cost. So here I am, caught in this impossible struggle, sharing this with you because the story is far from over and the stakes have never been higher. If you've ever faced a choice where every path feels like walking into the unknown, you'll understand the weight pressing down on me. The truth waits behind that closet door, but so does danger, and I have to decide if I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Stay with me because the next chapter could change everything, and the only way through this darkness is together. The moment I thought I was standing on the edge of a personal nightmare, the truth exploded into something far bigger, far darker than I could have imagined, swallowing not just me and my family but a whole network of hidden players whose reach extended beyond anything I'd ever dreamed. The conspiracy wasn't confined to whispered threats or a vanished sister or a haunted closet. It was a tangled web of lies and manipulation stretching into places I had no right to even suspect. As pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place at a terrifying pace, I realized this was no isolated tragedy. It was part of a much larger scheme, one that involved people I once trusted implicitly and organizations I never knew existed. It hit me like a punch to the gut when I discovered that someone close, someone who had offered comfort and guidance through this hell, was actually working against me, feeding information back to those trying to keep the truth buried. The betrayal stung sharper than anything else, because it was wrapped in kindness and familiarity. I kept replaying every interaction, every shared secret, wondering what had been genuine and what had been a mask to hide deceit. The line between friend and foe blurred until I didn't know who to trust anymore. And worse, I realized this was intentional, a calculated move to isolate me, to keep me vulnerable and alone in a storm that was closing in fast. The pressure was crushing. Threats escalated from veiled warnings to direct intimidation. Strange cars followed me, shadows lingered outside our home, and the crawling baby, who had unknowingly been the thread pulling me toward the truth, became a symbol of the fragile life at risk. Every breath felt like a gamble, every step a choice between survival and exposure. But with every threat, my resolve hardened. I wasn't just fighting for answers anymore, I was fighting for our lives. Then came the revelation that shattered everything. The conspiracy wasn't just about protecting a secret. It was about control, power, and silence on a scale that went beyond our family, our neighborhood, even our city. There were people in positions of authority, people with the ability to manipulate truth and justice, all working to cover up something so dark it poisoned every corner of our lives. The mysterious symbols weren't random. They were part of a code, a message to those in the know, signaling loyalty and warning outsiders to stay away. The diary entries, the photo, the disappearances, they were pieces of a story that many had tried to erase. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Every discovery peeled back another layer of danger, and I found myself racing against time, trying to outsmart a force that seemed unstoppable. The house no longer felt safe. It was a trap filled with memories and threats, a battlefield where the past and present collided in a desperate fight for truth. And through it all, the crawling baby was the silent witness to a nightmare that had grown far beyond anything I could have imagined. This isn't just my story anymore. It's a warning, a call to anyone who has felt the weight of secrets and the sting of betrayal. The closet door hides more than memories, it hides a conspiracy that could swallow us all if we're not careful. As I stand on the brink of uncovering the full truth, the danger is real, the enemies are close, and the clock is ticking. If you've stayed with me this far, know that the climax is near, and the next revelations could change everything, not just for me but for everyone caught in the shadows of this terrifying mystery. The night I finally confronted the truth felt like stepping into a nightmare I'd been running toward for months, heart pounding with a mix of dread and desperate hope. Every shadow in the house seemed to stretch longer, every creak in the floor a warning as I made my way toward that closet, the epicenter of all the secrets, lies, and pain that had consumed my life. I wasn't alone. The crawling baby followed closely, his innocent eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and something I couldn't quite name, maybe fear, maybe understanding. As I reached the closet door, my hand trembled, but I knew I had to open it, had to face whatever lay beyond or risk being trapped forever in the darkness of uncertainty. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths, and then just as I twisted the knob, the door swung open to reveal something I never expected. Not ghosts or shadows, but the person I had once trusted most, standing there with a cold, unreadable expression. The confrontation that followed was raw and brutal, a battle not just of words but of years of deception and heartbreak. My partner, the person who had shared my life and my grief, admitted to a web of lies designed to protect a secret so terrible it threatened to destroy us all if it ever came to light. The truth about our daughter's death was more twisted than I could have imagined. An accident covered up to hide negligence, whispered threats to silence anyone who came too close, and a network of people willing to bury the truth at any cost. The symbols, the diary entries, the missing keepsakes, all part of a desperate attempt to keep the past locked away, to shield the family from ruin, or so they claimed. But as their words spilled out, I saw through the excuses and the guilt, recognizing the damage done not just to our daughter but to everything we once believed in. The room felt suffocating as the emotional weight crashed over me, but there was no time to process. The stranger I had doubted before revealed themselves to be someone who had been working to expose the truth all along, a silent guardian pulling strings behind the scenes to keep me safe and push the hidden villains into the light. With their help, the pieces came together rapidly. Messages intercepted, allies found in unexpected places, and finally the proof that could bring down the conspiracy and free us from its grip. Yet even in that moment of seeming victory, the house groaned and the baby let out a sudden, piercing cry, as if warning us that the nightmare was far from over. Then came the final, shattering twist. As I looked down at the baby, the innocent child whose crawling had led me through this maze of shadows, I realized something chilling. The baby wasn't just a witness or a symbol, he was the key. Not to the past I'd been chasing, but to a future still unwritten, a legacy entwined with the darkness we'd uncovered. The stranger's words echoed in my mind, "The truth is never what it seems." Sometimes, it's in the smallest, quietest moments that the greatest mysteries hide. And in that instant, I understood that what I thought was an ending was actually just the beginning. A new chapter where the lines between love and fear, trust and betrayal, would blur even further. The closet door, the crawling baby, the secrets we uncovered, they were all threads in a story that refused to end, pulling me into a future that was as terrifying as it was inevitable. I share this with you now because this story isn't just mine. It's a warning, a reminder that the darkest mysteries don't just haunt the past. They live inside us, shaping our lives in ways we never expect. The answers came at a cost, and the true challenge lies ahead. If you've followed this journey, know that the truth can be both freeing and binding, and sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones that keep crawling back no matter how far you run. In the days that followed that night, the storm inside me began to settle, though its echoes would never fully fade. The truth I had unearthed was raw and painful, shaking the very core of who I thought I was and the life I'd tried to protect. But with that truth came a fragile kind of peace, not the easy kind, but the honest kind that comes from facing darkness head-on, refusing to let it define you. I learned that secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of clawing back to the surface, and sometimes the only way to find peace is to let them rise and meet the light. The conspiracy that once felt endless was exposed, the shadows pushed back enough to breathe, but the scars remained, reminders of loss, betrayal, and the fragile nature of trust. My partner and I began the slow, painful work of rebuilding what had been broken, not by ignoring the past but by acknowledging it, understanding the weight we'd both carried and the part we had played. The crawling baby, whose silent persistence had led me through every twist and turn, grew with a quiet resilience, a symbol of hope and continuity amid the chaos. That closet, once a prison of grief and fear, became a place of remembrance, a space where memories lived without torment, where love could coexist with loss. I realized that some mysteries might never fully unravel, and that was okay. Life is messy and complicated, filled with shadows and light tangled together, and sometimes the most important truth is learning how to live with both. Yet even as I write these words, a small part of me remains unsettled, as if the story isn't quite finished. The last twist, the baby's quiet connection to everything we uncovered, still lingers in my thoughts like a whisper in the dark. It reminds me that the past never truly disappears, and that some doors, once opened, lead not to endings but to new beginnings filled with questions we're not yet ready to answer. Maybe that's the true mystery, the way life keeps pulling us forward, challenging us to face the unknown with courage, even when the path is uncertain and the risks are real. If there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and that the most profound stories are those that leave a space for wonder, reflection, and the unspoken truths we carry inside. So as you think back on this journey, the crawling baby, the haunted closet, the tangled web of secrets, I invite you to hold on to the complexity of it all. Remember that behind every mystery lies a human heart, beating with fear, love, and the relentless desire to find light in the darkest places. And maybe, just maybe, the answers we seek aren't just about solving the puzzle, but about understanding the stories that shape us and the courage it takes to keep moving forward, no matter what shadows follow. Thank you for walking this path with me. The story lives on, in the quiet moments, in the unanswered questions, and in the hope that even the deepest mysteries can lead us to a place of grace.